Welcome to the Baby Playbook Podcast. Guys, so great to have your company on the podcast again for yet another episode. We're going to get straight stuck into it today because we're going to be touching on one of, I think, what is the top two topics that you guys like to hear from on this podcast. One is baby sleep, because I think everybody struggles with that. So when we get some great experts on to speak about that, I know you guys get really excited. Today is all about starting solids. We're going to get back into this topic, and we've had a few episodes on this. We've run from everything of how do you prepare? How do you choose between all the different styles of starting solids? Baby-led weaning, what is that? Puree. And then also just what it looks like within the first 6 months of kicking it off and all that sort of stuff. But today is a little bit different. We're going to really get stuck into the power of food and I guess the power of nutrition and how you can really look at introducing food in a different way with your baby. It is a really exciting time. I remember starting with Noah and I was really quite excited to kind of get everything organized. Very quickly, the novelty of that kind of faded away when I had to do all this meal prep, what felt like meal prep sessions with all his food and puree. And, I bought all these different gadgets, which I can only now realize that I probably spent way too much money on. But we all go through that. We all go through the journey. And it can be quite a handful as well. And it can be quite overwhelming with just how to approach it, where to start, what food is good for them, what are some foods that are really going to really give them the energy that they need, the iron they need at this time. So there's a lot of questions here. Let's get some answers to that. Today I'm speaking to Kat Dean. Kat is a mum of a 4-year-old beautiful daughter, and she's the creator of Little Vegan Eats. She really tries to share those simple plant-based recipes for everyday family life. And also what started as a way of making mealtimes easier for her toddler has really grown into a bit of a community of parents looking for that real practical inspiration around food, parenting, and living a life a little bit more sustainably as well, which I really love. Thank you so much, Kat.
Thanks for having us.
I'm so excited to chat to you because I've kind of trolled through and given you a little bit of a stalk on Instagram, as we all do. We can kind of admit those things now. I feel like it's not as embarrassing.
I've had a look at yours.
Yeah, a few years ago. And you truly do just kind of share those really practical, easy ways to fuel baby with food, and also not make it such a task, because as I said, when you start solids, it can feel like just another thing you have to do alongside. You're still probably figuring out sleep. I think there's a regression around that 6-month mark, we
regressed for 3 years.
Yes. So I want to ask, first of all, how was it for you with your daughter and approaching this, especially because of your background? I feel like you would have had some added pressure there because you were so knowledgeable in food.
I think more the added pressure was obviously being vegan yourself and then raising a vegan child. It's, if you don't do it right or if something goes wrong, it's instantly that's going to be the issue. Or if your kid's not eating, people are going to be like, that's because you're vegan, or, so I think the pressure there was from that, but also you had a child similar around that same age of COVID lockdowns, and it was a very isolating time. And I remember the second food I ever shared my daughter, she had watermelon and I gave her the big chunks. I was super proud, super excited of how she was eating. And I sent it to my mum. And the first thing my mum did, which that generation was, you're going to kill her. She's going to choke. So the second food she ever had, I was in this massive fear and panic of, oh my God, I'm going to kill my daughter. What have I done? And so I think starting weaning and obviously going down that baby-led weaning path of, you just give it to them. They're going to sort of figure it out themselves. There's all that extra pressure of, are they choking? Are they gagging? Yes.
It's overwhelming. It really is overwhelming.
Definitely.
And there
there's
is,
so
of
much
course,
pressure.
Yes. There is all that pressure. And I think as well, you because of this day and age of Instagram and social media as well, we're really comparing ourselves to all the mums out there. You're following a lot of accounts and they're preparing these luxurious meals for their baby. And you're like, I've just steamed some sweet potato. Is that enough? So there's a lot of self-judgment as well when it comes to this area.
Definitely. I've also got that mentality similar of, if it's not perfect, it's not good enough. So I had to really drop that of all or nothing sort of approach. If I'm not doing it good enough, I'm not doing it at all kind of thing. I remember some days probably between that 6 and 9 months where I was overwhelmed with it. And I was we're just not going to have any solids today. We're just going to have more boob.
Yeah.
I don't want the pressure.
Yes. Yeah.
That's sort of when I started my account, was around maybe 10 months, because I was there was very few like plant-based or vegan accounts to follow. And I was like, I don't know what to do. Let's share it and kind of see where it goes from there. And it just started growing. So
Yeah, amazing.
yeah.
Well, let's talk about the this plant-based journey, because I think that I feel like all babies kind of start a little bit plant-based because most of us start with fruit and veg. That's like the first few foods that you do
The
tend
easiest ones to prepare.
to prepare for babies. So I want to really just pick at your brain here. What are some of the foods that you really consider to be superfoods when first starting solids? Because there's a lot of fruit and veg out there. I remember thinking, like, where do I even start? What's the first fruit that I start with, or what's the first veg that I start with? One really great tip that I got at the time was, like, if it's something that your family regularly eats, then that's probably something that you should give it a go, because if that's going to be integrated into their diet very frequently, then you would like to get them used to it. But please tell me, I guess, where do we start, and what are some of those really bold superfoods that we could really focus on getting into baby?
Yeah, you basically took the words out of my mouth there, the things that you're going to be eating regularly. But I think the main thing is, like, taking away from like the term of superfoods and more moving to more like whole foods and picking things that are really nutrient dense. So like the first food we ever did was avocado. Like, it's good, it's slimy. So with that, I actually rolled it in, I can't remember if it was like nutritional yeast or like ground up chia or something like that, so that they're able to hold it, play with it. But yeah, really going for something that's going to pack a nutrient punch, because they're not eating much. They get maybe like a spoonful at that age that they chew off. So things that like avocados, berries, obviously that one's quite a hard one to do. You can use those teethers and things like that, or mash it up. Sweet potatoes, pancakes. Pancakes were a great one. So I did those with, like, you can either use like baby cereal because it's iron fortified, and then breast milk. So literally the most disgusting pancakes as like an adult, but for a baby, they're just like cool, something new to try. So I think really focusing more on whole foods, things that are going to have that iron, or things that are going to give that little bit of fullness to their tummy, and different textures. That's probably the biggest one. So rather than, like, we went through, even after trying everything, we had about 18 months of serious fussy eating. So from about 18 months to 3 years, Ava basically survived on like bits of toast, yogurt, and banana. Like, it was hard. So even though I'm like, oh, do all this, it helps avoid fussy eating, we got absolutely slammed with it. I was so humbled. I'm like, please eat my food. And she's like, no thanks, I don't want it. I hate that food today. And you're like,
oh, great.
Cheers. But yeah, so
I'd love to
less
ask
superfoods,
you,
more nutrients.
Great. I'd love to ask you a little bit about the iron, because and we've had this said in previous episodes as well from nutritionists, that there is this spike in their iron needs at around that 6-month mark. Can you just explain that a little bit? Because it's really good to, once you get an understanding of that, it's like, it really kind of like is in the forefront of your mind when starting solids. So talk to me about that, like, increase in need, and then also some iron rich foods that perhaps are like easy to work with.
Yeah, so I think probably the hardest thing is that's like another one of those things that's then weighing on your mind, especially with being vegans. Like, you're not offering like red meat and things like that. So to get like that non-heme iron is really, really difficult. Yeah, that literally, that bugged me for like the first, it still bugs me like every day. I'm like, gotta get that iron in.
Yeah.
But so I think obviously that 6 months onwards, you can do things like all the baby cereals, all the most baby foods are iron fortified. So we'd use those in things like, to, as I said, make pancakes or muffins. You could even use those to like roll foods in. It can work. And then things like your tofu, you can get iron fortified tofu. It's very hard in Australia, but in other countries like the UK and the US, it is so easily accessible. Like, Australia is very far behind in terms of things for vegan families or vegan kids. Basically, that whole aisle is out of bounds.
Yeah, right.
So yeah, going more, trying to go back to whole foods. So you've got to get your legumes. You've got to eat quite a lot. So everything you make, you've kind of got to try and pack as much nutrition in as possible. And in little things, even like in dates and black beans, like try and make brownies and stuff like that. It's really hard, but it is doable.
Okay. There's little ways. And obviously your page is great with inspiration with that as well, because again, we're not, most parents aren't experts in food, we're just eat food and
Definitely
that's like
not
all we
either.
do. So it is really hard when all of a sudden, you are being fed these things like make sure you have iron rich foods and make sure you try for this and a varied diet and this and that. And you're like, oh
Yeah.
my gosh, how do I even like balance this? Can I ask you, you spoke a little bit about that pressure. So, you're stressing because of, I think, a couple of things. One is, you've got the choking whole nightmare in the back of your mind.
Yeah.
A great one to deal with that is, of course, everybody I recommend is to do a first aid course,
Yes.
like a baby first aid course, which is like you just like that is the best course you'll ever do
Yeah.
over a birthing course, over like all of the other courses that are available.
And adults need to do it, please.
Yes,
I'm like to my husband, I'm like, if I'm dying, you need to save me. And he still hasn't done it.
exactly.
So I'm like, for God's sake.
Exactly. And then outside of that kind of pressure, there's also, I know that some of us make that mistake of like expectation in terms of amount they should be eating. And then there's expectation of like, well, oh my gosh, they only ate, like they're only eating fruit. Do they have a sweet tooth? Like, anyway, you can drive yourself crazy with these things.
I just had to stop thinking about it. I was like, I'm not going to focus on iron anymore. I'm just going to eat. I can make you the most iron-rich, plant-based meal, and you're just going to go, I don't want any of it. And then you're just like, oh, like
it's very offensive.
You can just burn yourself out. Like, I was just like, yeah, sorry.
No, I was just going to say, what is your advice there? Because I know like it's sometimes you can't help it. But like what advice do you give parents who are getting quite anxious about starting solids and getting food into their baby, and like even prior to meal times, you really work yourself up, and then nobody's, you also hear this thing of like, if you're in an anxious mood, baby's in an anxious mood. Like, what's your advice there?
So I'm probably like the most Australian in that terms of, you can't really change it. Like you literally can't force them to eat. Like you can shove that spoon in all you like. If they don't want it, they're just going to spit it out. So that's probably the biggest one is all you can control is what you're going to offer, and the baby's going to choose what they're going to eat. And that's what it comes down to at the end of the day. So
that's a really
have
good way
more boobs those days. Like have more formula, whatever it is that you're doing until that 12 months, really just survive.
Yeah.
You're both just surviving at that stage.
Yeah, really lower that expectation.
Yeah, literally lower the expectations. You've got enough going on. Like you can't force them.
Okay.
Well, and just keep offering. That's the other thing. Like if they're not going to eat it, at least I used to save like leftovers for 3 days, and it would just keep getting put on the same plate along with something that I'd know that she'd like eat, like banana or berries or avocado. I'm like, there's something else. Eventually you might try it. Like, just keep offering and don't stress.
Yeah. And we do hear, sometimes it takes like multiple offers before they even like get a hint to even pick it up off their plate. So don't, like, I do hear that advice of as well, like don't give up just because they haven't had it once or twice, pop it out again or pop it with a different combo, and you just never know. Can we talk a little bit about baby-led weaning? Because this is something that you also like talk a lot about, and you mentioned, before, that little tip of when you have an avocado, it's a little bit slippery, you make it a little bit grainy and they're able to grab onto it. What are your biggest tips with baby-led weaning in terms of approaching it, starting it, and I guess even some like really quick ideas on some simple baby-led weaning recipes?
Yeah, so I think with starting it is I really cut back to just simple. Probably for that first month, I was offering one thing at a time. One thing that she could, so one day it would be something slippery like that avocado or really fatty. The next day would be maybe a little bit of a warm texture. So something like a warm sweet potato chunk or watermelon as well. It's such a different texture. And then offering berries. So just really different textures, different temperatures, different flavors. So sweet, sour. Sourdough is a great one. So they get that really like a sourdough crust as well. That's the perfect one. It's great for teething. It's nutrient dense. They're getting that exposure to wheat. Obviously, don't do it if they've got an allergy. But yeah, I think the biggest thing is just don't stress. Cut it back. Simple. Go, okay, today we're doing avocado. You don't know what you're doing tomorrow. Fine. Figure out what's in the fridge or what's something you want to eat. Cut them up a chunk of that, and that's what they're going to go with. Obviously, do it in a safe serving size. And things that you're going to eat. So one of the mistakes I made when Ava was, I'm trying to think of what she looked like in the picture. Must have been about 10 months old. I was like, you're going to try chana masala, which is a spicy chickpea curry. I was like, yeah, you'll get into it. You'll be fine. Like, that's what we eat. You'll adapt. I was like, a little bit less chili than we have. The worst idea I'd ever done. Obviously, they're in there with their hands, and then she went like this, wiped her eye. She got a chilly eye, and I was like, I'm the worst mom in the world.
Oh my gosh.
Her whole face was like red and puffy. I was like, oh my God.
This is a disaster.
And my husband was like, yeah. So be mindful of what you're giving them. I'd say maybe ease off anything that has chili in it until they're actually, they're either spooning it in or they're not wiping their eyes, which that could be quite a while. But yeah, just keep it while you're eating it. Keep it simple. Use those little tips. Like if it's slippery, roll it in stuff. You can use those little feeder type things. I can't even remember what they're called. They look like a lollipop or popsicle.
Yeah, they
that
squish
you can shove
things.
Yeah, you can shove berries, and they can experience that. And the other one that most people don't realize is they don't need teeth, obviously, to eat. We know that. But Ava didn't get a tooth until she was 13 months. She was plowing through food, eating it all. They just use their gums. Like that's the other one that I find a lot of people are like, oh, they don't have any teeth. How are they going to eat? They really don't.
To remind yourself of that.
Yeah.
You mentioned it a little bit there, and of course, like perhaps like taking back the chili a little bit. But let's talk about eating as a family, because I definitely with my first, I was much better with this with my second, and that's just because you're forced into it because like ain't nobody got time. But the first one, I would like specifically make meals for him, and I would sit him down and like stare at him in the chair, and I would like feed him, So we all make that mistake. And we've talked about this in the podcast regularly with a heap of guests about, making sure you ease back on the pressure. You also eat with them to encourage them to eat. But you are also really passionate about making sure that they're eating like with the family. So you're cooking kind of one thing, but you're like altering it slightly so that baby has its version in its plate, and toddler has its version in its plate, and mum and dad have their version. What's your big advice here?
For that one, best way to approach that is, have you ever well, obviously, as you said, you're just sitting there watching them. If you're eating a meal, it happened to me the other day. We were at a really nice restaurant in Sydney, and there were people waiting, and they all came in, and they were just standing on this wall, and I was uncomfortably the one that was facing them, and it felt like I was on like show. You're like, everyone's watching you eat. So I know babies aren't really as socially aware as we are, but even just giving off that vibe of like, you're awkwardly being stared at, it's not very comfortable. So when you like lean back, you're enjoying meals with them, you're there, you're able to model how to eat, you're showing them, like meal times can be a fun time. This is how we share. We can, obviously at that age, they're not that time of like communicating, but there's still that energy around food, and creating that positive space I think is really, really important. Does that answer that?
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. But and getting messy. Let them get messy. That's how they're going to learn. So kids just love being like gross as it is, all over the floor, all over the tables. Let them get in that mess. They feel those textures. They get more comfortable with food. And then I think the other big one that I really love when they get older, so I think it was maybe around 11 or 12 months, is when we introduced a learning tower. And that was so getting kids into the kitchen. Like even if she wasn't obviously capable of doing any kitchen skills then, but I'd give her like a bowl, and I'd give her some mushrooms or a carrot, and she'd just be there playing with them. And then obviously when she got that little bit older, she got a knife, a kid's safe knife. Not going crazy there. And she would just be chopping. Now she's 4 and she loves cooking. So I think the biggest thing would be not just around what happens at mealtimes, but what happens outside of it. So being comfortable with food, being exposed to it early, and that preparation side as well. It can feel like another thing that you're trying to do as a parent. And I know there's loads, and sometimes it's easier just to put them somewhere else with a toy. But that can be a great one that, whilst it's really difficult when they're younger, it does actually start to pay off when they're older and they've got those skills and that confidence and that like appreciation of how long something takes to cook. Like the other day we were making like a lasagna, and I was like, yeah, okay. Like it was the first time I've actually led her over to the stove, and that's given me like a lot of anxiety. I'm like, there's a hot pot, there's gas, like don't touch the pan kind of thing. And she was whisking away and she was like, oh, it's really hard making a white sauce. And I was like, yeah, it is. And I was like, and that's why I get upset when you won't try something. Like, I've spent hours making you food. So I think that's a really good one, is getting that interest in food early, not just in terms of what happens at the table, but what happens in the lead up to the table. And sometimes it's stressy, but then a lot of the time it's fun.
Yeah. And it's
Yeah.
also like a way of, I mean, I don't know about you, but like especially in those early months, the days can go like quite slow. And so like, you know, you're really trying to figure out what to do with the awake time. You're like, okay, we've got an hour and a half. You know, like grab the high chair and chuck it in the kitchen with you, because then you can make food and you can start preparing dinner, and they can just kind of watch you, and you can give them like, you know, as you're chopping something up, you give them something to just hold and like explore or whatever it may be. Again, like, you know, safe age food or whatever. But it's just a way of also not limiting yourself during the day, because when you do that very fixed, okay, we're sitting down and I'm going to now feed you breakfast, and then you're stressing out, 45 minutes has gone by and like nobody's had a spoon, and you're like still trying to encourage them, you know, it's just a waste of time. Like it's just nobody's having a great time. So integrating them into that aspect as well really helps.
Yeah. The other thing I did when Ava was that age, so God, there was all those what are those baby proofing things on all the drawers in the kitchen.
Yes.
But there was one safe drawer. So that was basically like plastic Tupperware. You can throw in like a silicone whisk, a spatula, things that they don't make too much noise, so you're not going to get like sensory overload. But be like, okay, we're in the kitchen. Like, open that drawer, raid that. Like, or silicone donut molds. That was the best one. She'd just be like running around donut molds and popsicle sticks and like playing on the floor in the kitchen. Like, you're nearby, you're busy, and it's not too noisy, that on those days where you're like, I can't handle another noise, it's not going to bug you. So that would be another great one of when they're that little bit older, maybe about that 12 months, and just raiding everything. Have a safe drawer that they can play with in the kitchen, and getting them again used to different kitchen tools, and they love being involved.
Yeah, they really do.
If you let them, they love being involved.
I'd love to ask you, Kat, before we kind of wrap up, is do you have any, I mean, you know, I know you mentioned pancakes just before. That's always a really cool one to start with kids, with babies, because they're like really soft, and you can, like, I know people sneak in some like zucchini into pancakes and things like that. We had a nutritionist on a couple of weeks ago, and she said one of her favorite things to serve her kids early on was a mash between avocado and banana, which she said is actually like really tasty. And she was like, adults should also consume, because it's like this weird combo that actually tastes delicious. Any of those quick recipes that were some of your favorites that you can tell mums and dads, like, give this one a go, or this is a really fun one that the whole family can eat?
Yeah. So we still have the exact same pancakes that we had when Ava was little. I have tried avocado once, but I'm guessing I need to try it again, because I was like, I couldn't handle the taste. I don't know if maybe you know how you get some weird avos? Maybe it was the avocado was odd. But the pancakes that we always use from the start, still use, is banana, oats, and soy milk. And I mean, you can sub it with whatever milk you like. I prefer that because it's higher in protein. And then a bit of baking powder. But the other thing that I like to swap out, so you could use the oats that are fortified in iron, but when I'm making them for myself, I more prefer spelt flour. So spelt, again, is a bit higher in iron, and also rye as well, rye flour, but that does have like a stronger flavor. But again, that's the other thing with like kids, they're not used to things needing to be overly sweet. They're used to what they've been served. So that is like my go-to breakfast. We had it for brekkie today. It's bananas, milk, and spelt flour. You can use any oat flour, rye flour, plain flour, whatever you like. That one, and then muffins, that's another great one. So you can throw loads of veggies in there. When they're that bit older, you can put the cacao in. So it's got that sweet chocolatey kind of stuff. What else? Slices, oat slice. That's again, it's basically like a pancake but baked, and you've got like brekkie prepped for 5 days, or freeze them. So yeah, that one's just like banana, nut butter, or you could use like seed butter, or tahini, something like that, and oats. And then I top it with like a chia jam. So that's again just maybe like raspberries, chia seeds, mash that up, bake it. You can make it look fancy with a bit of a crumble by taking some of the base and putting it on top. What else? anything really that you can make and freeze, because that can like store for 2 months. And there's so many days when you're going to be like, I don't want to cook. So
Yeah.
in our freezer, we've always got at least like 5 nights worth of food for where I'm like, I don't want to cook today. I don't want to think.
Yeah.
And you just pull out like some kind of veggie sauce or like a dal. So things that you could turn into any kind of meal. So you could have it on rice, or you could have it with a wrap, or on a potato, or anything like that. Pasta. So the other one, Iron Good one. There's a really good brand. Bellamy's Organic has spelt pasta, and they have a little macaroni one, and that's really highly fortified. I think it's about 7 milligrams per serve. So you're already like halfway to what your daily requirements are in one portion. That was my favorite pasta when Ava was little, and whenever I can find it now. So
amazing.
yes.
And I love that also, like a lot of, with meal prep, of course, like it's just very helpful. And in the chaos of everything, if you have, those muffins sitting in the freezer, then like, it just is one less thing to do that day as well. But I also think, like, I don't know if you agree here, Kat, but like I was very much of the thinking of like early on, for some reason, I felt like every meal had to be something different. Like I was like a restaurant a restaurateur for my children. And I'm like, why am I doing this? It's fine. Like if I've made these muffins, and if they have these muffins, like obviously not for every meal, but like, for the next week, and then I bring them back, like they don't know any different. It's us that put this pressure on ourselves of like, okay, like for lunch we had this, now I better get started on dinner. It's like they could literally have, that muffin or whatever it was, especially in those early days when they're only having like 2 bites of something, right?
Yeah, I think in those first, probably up until they're about maybe a year and a half or 2 years, they don't really know what they had the day before. So I'm like, you're having pancakes for the next 4 days because that's what I've made.
Yes.
You're going to have, even now, I'll go to give Ava something she had the day before. She's like, I had that for breakfast yesterday. I'm like, and that's what's for breakfast today.
Yeah.
Like, that's our option. But also the idea of some days it's going to be like, oh, you've got a spaghetti bowl, or you've got some kind of really nicely made, nutrient-dense dish. And then some days it's really simple. You're like, we're having avo on toast. That packs it. You can sprinkle some hemp seeds, things like that on top that are going to boost the nutrition again. Some days you put a load of effort in. Some days it's just a bit of toast.
And that's totally fine.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, I survived on God knows what, like rice bubbles and Cocoa Pops and like a peanut butter sandwich.
Yeah.
So having a bit of avo toast, or like even like a peanut butter sandwich is fine. Like taking that stress away and
keeping it simple. I love it.
Making it easy.
Well, if you guys would like some inspo, you have to be following Kat on Instagram, little.vegan.eats. She's also on Facebook, and of course you can head to her website as well, littleveganeats.co, just CO there. Thank you so much for joining us, Kat. As I said, this is such a popular topic, and I think it is a popular topic because we're not experts in this space. So whenever we can get some advice, and some really also practical and simple advice that's like no pressure, you don't have to overperform here. Keep it super simple. I really appreciate it, because that's what I like to hear as a mum. So thank you.
Just make it as easy as possible.